For the attempted murder of Erin Wilkinson, I sentence you to 25 years imprisonment. For the murder of Heather Wilkinson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Gail Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Don Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. All sentences are to be served concurrently. The total effective sentence is life imprisonment, and I fix a non-parole period of 33 years.
She was unbothered. That is the word people used when they walked out of that courtroom. Unbothered. Not shaken. Not broken. Not the face of a woman who had just been convicted of murdering 3 people in cold blood and attempting to kill a 4th. Just a woman sitting between 2 prison officers, staring ahead, while the jury delivered the most damning verdict in recent Australian criminal history. But look closer, look past the stillness, past the controlled expression, past the performance she had apparently been giving for 20 years straight, and you will see it. The blink, rapid, involuntary, over and over with every guilty verdict read aloud. Because this was a woman who had lied about having cancer to get her victims to the table, who had lied about where she sourced her mushrooms, who had lied about owning a food dehydrator and then quietly drove it to a waste station and dumped it before police could find it, who had wiped her own phone clean, factory reset, and handed investigators a different one entirely. 20 years of calculated deception. And in the end, the only thing that gave her away was a blink she could not stop. Welcome to Courtroom Justice Files, and today we are going inside the Erin Patterson case. Stay with me. To understand what happened on July 29th, 2023, you have to understand who Erin Patterson was and what was quietly boiling beneath the surface of her life. Erin Trudy Patterson grew up in regional Victoria, Australia. By all outward appearances, she was unremarkable. She married Simon Patterson in 2007. They had 2 children together. They lived in Leongatha, a small, tight-knit farming town about 135 kilometers southeast of Melbourne. The kind of place where people know your name, where Sunday lunch with the in-laws is just normal. For years, the Pattersons were a regular family. Simon's parents, Don and Gail Patterson, were warm people, kind people in their early 70s, retired, church-going. The kind of grandparents who showed up for the grandkids. These were not people who had enemies. But something changed around 2015. Erin and Simon's marriage began to fracture. They separated permanently, and while they tried to remain civil for the children, sharing custody, even going on occasional family holidays, things quietly deteriorated. By 2022, Simon had listed himself as separated on a tax return. Lawyers got involved. A child support dispute began, communication broke down, and the messages Erin was sending to the family group chat, prosecutors would later describe them as extremely aggressive. People who knew Erin from earlier in her life described a pattern going back years. Former colleagues told the court she was isolated, solitary at work, unable to bond when rejected, or when she felt wronged. The reaction could be sudden and fierce. A psychologist who reviewed the case used the words ritual, habitual, and pathological to describe what people observed about her behavior as far back as 2001. By 2022, she was sending hostile messages to Simon's family. She was posting criticism of them on social media. She was, by all accounts, someone who had nursed a deep and growing resentment and had no outlet for it until she found one. In the months leading up to July 2023, Erin Patterson began telling people she was sick, not just slightly unwell, seriously sick. She told Don and Gail Patterson, her former in-laws, that she had found a lump, that she had been having medical tests on her elbow, that she had an appointment coming up, that she had serious news that she wanted to share with them in person. She was fabricating a cancer diagnosis. Police later reviewed her 2023 medical records. There was no MRI, no biopsy, no cancer diagnosis, no specialist, nothing. But the lie had a very specific purpose. The prosecution argued it brilliantly in court. Erin Patterson never intended to be questioned about that cancer claim because she believed the people she told it to would not live long enough to expose her. Think about that. She created the lie knowing the lie would die with her guests. But the cancer story was not just a cover. It was a lure. She used it to invite Don, Gail, Heather, and Ian to her home for a special lunch, framing it as a serious gathering, just adults, an opportunity to share her diagnosis and talk about how to tell the children. She even arranged for her own kids to be taken out that day to McDonald's and the cinema so they would not be at the table. She made sure she would be in total control. Simon Patterson, her estranged husband and the son of Don and Gail, was also invited. He declined at the last minute. That detail would become important because on that July afternoon in 2023, Erin Patterson served her guests individual portions of Beef Wellington, not one shared dish, individual plates. Each one prepared separately, each one controlled precisely. Her guests ate from 4 large gray dinner plates. She ate from a smaller, tan-colored plate. Beef Wellington is a classic dish, beef tenderloin, wrapped in a mushroom paste called duxelle and encased in puff pastry. It is a show-stopping meal, the kind you make when you want to impress. Erin Patterson said she loved to cook. She said she had sourced mushrooms from an Asian grocery store near Melbourne. She said she had no idea anything was wrong, but the prosecution told a different story. Expert witnesses testified that the Beef Wellington served to those 4 guests contained Amanita phalloides, otherwise known as the death cap mushroom, one of the most lethal fungi on the planet. A mushroom that kills 90% of people who consume even a small amount. A mushroom that contains amatoxins, poisons that are odorless, tasteless, and completely undetectable in food. You cannot smell a death cap, you cannot taste it. And by the time symptoms begin, the toxins are already destroying the liver and kidneys from the inside. Within hours of finishing their meal, all 4 guests fell violently ill. Don Patterson, 70 years old, was hospitalized and never recovered. He died. Gail Patterson, 70 years old, was hospitalized. She died. Heather Wilkinson, 66 years old, was hospitalized. She died. Erin Wilkinson, 68 years old, was placed into an induced coma. He spent weeks in intensive care, hooked to machines, fighting for his life. Against all odds, he survived. 3 people dead, 1 barely alive. And Erin Patterson? She claimed she too had felt ill after the meal. She told people she had vomited. She told investigators she had been sick. She said she had given the leftovers to her children to eat, a claim witnesses flatly contradicted, in which the prosecution argued was a deliberate lie designed to make the whole thing look like a tragic accident. If she had fed it to her beloved kids, people would assume she had not done it on purpose. It was a lie. Her children ate steak, mashed potatoes, and beans, not the Beef Wellington. Investigators from Victoria's homicide squad began closing in quickly. The first thing that stood out, the death cap mushroom is not found in grocery stores. It does not come from Asian supermarkets. It grows wild in specific locations, in specific seasons, and it requires knowledge and foraging to obtain. Authorities launched a frantic public health search, checking store shelves across the region for contaminated mushrooms. They found nothing because the mushrooms had not come from store. The second thing that stood out, Erin Patterson appeared remarkably unharmed. For guests, all gravely ill, the host fine. And then investigators discovered something that changed everything, a food dehydrator. Prosecution evidence showed that Erin Patterson had purchased a food dehydrator in the months before the lunch, a device used to dry and concentrate food, including mushrooms. Prosecutors argued she had used it to dehydrate the death caps, reduce them to powder, and blend them invisibly into the duxelle of the Beef Wellington. When police asked her about the dehydrator, she lied. She said she did not own one. But then the dehydrator turned up at a local waste transfer station. She had dumped it. When confronted with this, she broke down. She admitted she had owned it. She said she dumped it in a stupid, knee-jerk reaction out of panic. She denied that it had anything to do with the mushrooms, and she was not done lying. Police also discovered she had factory reset her mobile phone during the investigation, wiping potential evidence. She hid her primary device from investigators and gave them a different one. She changed her story multiple times about where the mushrooms had come from, and prosecutors revealed a photograph on her phone that they alleged showed her calculating a lethal dose of death cap mushrooms. She denied everything. Erin Patterson was arrested in November 2023, 4 months after the lunch.
How are you feeling?
I'm saddened, and it is what it is. Thank you.
Did you have a chance to talk to Erin, though?
No.
Did you think that Erin was capable of something like this? She's a triple murderer.
Were you expecting your friend to be found not guilty?
I didn't have any expectations. It's the justice system, and it has to be what it is.
The trial of Erin Patterson began in the Victorian Supreme Court, sitting in Morwell, a small city 2 hours east of Melbourne. It ran for 9 weeks. It drew journalists from every major Australian outlet. International media, true crime writers, documentary crews. The tiny town was overwhelmed. More than 50 witnesses took the stand. Simon Patterson, her estranged husband and the son of 2 of the victims, was the prosecution's first witness. He told the court about the collapsed relationship, the child support dispute, the aggressive messages, and he directly contradicted Erin's testimony about a hospital conversation where she claimed he had asked her, "Is that how you poison my parents?" Simon said that conversation never happened. Erin Wilkinson, the only surviving guest, testified from his wheelchair, the man who had spent weeks in a coma, who had watched his wife Heather die, who had lost his in-laws Don and Gail. He told the court about the cancer lie, about how Erin had told them all at the table that she had been having tests, that she had serious news. His testimony was devastating. The prosecution outlined 4 calculated deceptions at the core of their case. First, the fabricated cancer diagnosis used to assemble the victims. Second, the deliberate poisoning of their food. Third, the false claim that she herself had also been ill. Fourth, the ongoing cover-up, the dehydrator, the phone reset, the lies to police.
I'd like to extend gratitude too to the team from the Office of Public Prosecutions, led by Senior Counsel Nanette Rogers. The court processes are a little bewildering to lay people like me, and we're grateful for their expertise, their hard work, and their perseverance that has secured this conviction. We're thankful that when things go wrong, there are good people and services and systems available to help us recover.
The defense told a different story. They called it a terrible accident. They acknowledged the lies, but argued they came from panic, not guilt. That Erin had foraged mushrooms to improve the recipe. That she had not known they were death caps. That when Simon accused her of murder, she panicked and made everything worse. But there was a detail the defense could not explain away. The individual plates. The prosecution asked, why? If this was a shared meal, did she make individual portions? Why was she in complete control of exactly who ate what and how much? Why did her plate look different to theirs? Why did everyone at that table get sick except the woman who cooked it? After 7 weeks of evidence, 6 days of closing arguments, and 6.5 days of deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict on July 7th, 2025. Guilty. Guilty of the murder of Don Patterson. Guilty of the murder of Gail Patterson. Guilty of the murder of Heather Wilkinson. Guilty of the attempted murder of Erin Wilkinson. All counts. Unanimous. Erin Patterson sat in the dock between 2 prison officers. She showed no emotion, but witnesses in the courtroom said she blinked rapidly over and over as each verdict was read aloud. In September 2025, she was sentenced to 3 concurrent life sentences. With a non-parole period of 33 years, she will not be eligible for release until she is in her 80s.
For the attempted murder of Erin Wilkinson, I sentence you to 25 years imprisonment. For the murder of Heather Wilkinson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Gail Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. For the murder of Don Patterson, I sentence you to life imprisonment. All sentences are to be served concurrently. The total effective sentence is life imprisonment, and I fix a non-parole period of 33 years.
Erin Wilkinson, who survived when no one else did, said in a victim impact statement that he forgives Erin Patterson, not for her sake, for his own. The man who lost his wife, lost his in-laws, spent weeks in a coma, and still found the strength to forgive. That says more about Erin Wilkinson than anything else in this case. And as for Erin Patterson, a woman prosecutors described as someone who had spent 20 years living a life of calculated deception, who lied about cancer, who lied about mushrooms, who lied about a dehydrator, who wiped her own phone to hide the evidence of what she had done. She now sits in a Melbourne prison with nothing left but time and the memory of a lunch she can never undo. 3 people walked into that house in Leongatha on a winter afternoon in July 2023. They walked in because they trusted her, because they cared about her children, because even after everything, the separation, the lawyers, the messages, they showed up. And that is the thing about this case that never leaves you. They were good people, they just trusted the wrong one. If this case has stayed with you, it should drop a comment below. Tell us what part of this case disturbed you most. The fake cancer, the individual plates, or the fact that she nearly got away with it. If you're new here, subscribe. New cases every week, all verified, all real. And until next time, stay aware, stay safe.